Live now.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Love that title card of happy, smiling, optimistic, anything can happen Aaron Rodgers. Certainly not the memory.
Not the wrong one. Yeah,
certainly not the memory we were left with at the tail end of, or at the beginning of the last season.
But that was the other thing. I almost used the picture of him running out with the flag as the title card. That's pretty negative. That's just tough. That's just one of those images preceding, terrible things kind of memes. Welcome in Vodzilla, Patrick, AS. Anyone else in the chat joining us live? If you're listening to the podcast forum, we appreciate you too.
Andy,
talk about the Jets.
I am so fired up for today's podcasts. Not just because we have two awesome teams to talk about, but I need a palate cleanser because the Olympics sucked for me today. They were bad. A lot of French golds. No Spanish got home.
I've seen the DM from
U.S. can't get a gold to save our lives right now. We're just crunching silvers. Although, realistically, the French being live still to stay under is somewhat lucky. There's been some moments where the sweat of the fencing. Did you watch any of that live?
No.
The fencing.
Honestly, I haven't
France
taken in much.
Oh my god.
So it's been a lot of just seeing memes of the 50-year-old Turkish guy shooting with one hand in his pocket. And
there's some cool shooting for sure.
Reading a lot about the boxing, a lot more about the boxing matches than I cared to. Just that's turned into a whole thing where
I got a real quick story for you. So I'm dying for the boxing. I mean, I'm dying for the Spanish to pop their cherry here, just get one. Hopefully it happens overnight in the race walking. We'll see. So I'm watching women's trap this morning, 5 in the Pacific time. I can't sleep. Up watching the women's trap. Trap is skeet shooting. If you didn't know that, right?
Honestly, it's huge here. We have high school teams here too. It's big in the Midwest.
You know who didn't? Who forgot to show up? Any Americans in the final six? It was an 100% international crew, and there were 2 Spanish women in it. And I'm like, here we go. We just need one of them to pop. One of them was the pre-flop favorite. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. The pre-flop favorite missed 4 of her first 5 pigeons, and I'm like, how? What is happening here?
You ever done it? It's not easy.
I know it's not easy, but here's where your mind goes when you're cheering for something like this, watching it, and you just don't have a lot of context for what's going on, right? The pigeons come out like random speeds and angles and trajectories.
Speed is all over the place.
It's random, right?
That's where that comes from in the song. Skeet, 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 skeet.
Yeah.
100%. That's
science. Fact, not opinion.
Is much harder.
Fact, not opinion. So they come at it random, right? And the ones for the Spanish chicks were so hard. They were just fast and low and totally sideways. And then the ones for the Guatemalan chick were just these layups, straight up. Barely, no speed every time. And I'm just watching him how is she getting the easy ones? What is happening? Meanwhile, she was just a robot. The Guatemalan woman was a robot. She was so good, clinical. I think she set an Olympic record. She was knocking on the door of a world record until a late miss, but it was very well decided in her favor. But hat tip to Guatemala for winning their first gold medal, not just this Olympics, but first gold medal. Good job, Guatemala. Would love for Spain to join you in the winner's circle. We shall see. Man.
They have a chip chair and a chance at doubles tennis.
No, they don't. Doubles tennis. We out.
They're out. Don't spoil things.
Nadal Carez got eliminated today by Rampras. You remember the Rajiv Ram who compared himself to Pete Sampras? Yes.
That's the thing about those double specialists. It's hard. Well, that's spoiled for me. I'm just going to watch that later. No, I don't. I have extra time. I'm going to play I got a new Nintendo game before we get into the Jets. It's not even new. I buy these games like years after they come out, but it's called Hades.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
You just run around a dungeon. Me and my kid have been just crushing that. There's like a little kid mode where like every time you die, you get 2% harder to kill the next time. So for him, it's great because otherwise he just gets too mad because he's a child.
He's like, "Oh, I'm getting better at this.
I'm getting better. I haven't had the heart to tell him like it's
like I'm the best player in the world now.
Yeah, am I world record holder? How much do you want to spend on last year? Because I don't know how much of it pertains to what we want to talk about. Like,
I think a good amount.
Well, I mean, defensive wise and some of the skill position players, but.
Well, no, we need to criticize last year for a couple. We need to point out a couple clear things that are clear problematic issues with this team heading into this season, which is they're kind of
roster building standpoint.
Yeah, not just a roster building standpoint, but just being kind of at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers.
That sucks, but I know, but that doesn't really, that's more of a long-term problem. This is, it is what it is this year. Again, I'm just trying to focus on how do I want to price this team this year? But like you said, it is one of the biggest riddles. Like, we haven't seen that many players, quarterback wise. I mean, a lot of it's been kickers if you're this old. It's been more recently, but like once these guys hit 40, again, dumbest shit ever. Like, most obvious thing, like, hey, when these quarterbacks are 40 years old, some of them aren't as good anymore. Like, we haven't seen them for a full year, and you expect me to put together some sort of grade, so if I'm using like a 5-year sample size, it's like, oh, he was an MVP at one point.
Yeah.
But if you want me to use like a 2-year sample size, like, oh, he was in a darkness retreat. And that was like the highlights. Like, I don't really know how to price this offense because I don't love Hackett. I don't love Rodgers coming off an injury. I don't love an old dude coming off an injury. Yeah. I don't love a dude who really never got into the flow of prepping with this team, with this, I'm sure he was in all the meetings, but it's not the same when you're not the guy that's, actually implementing a game plan. So it's just a really hard thing to price what the range of Aaron Rodgers we're going to get here. And like you said, it's been a weird roster and a weird, like you said, they're at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers here. But then at the same time, being at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers, knowing where you're at because of his age, his advanced age, you're kind of in a go for it window, right?
Oh, not just a go for a window, but like if we don't succeed this year, everybody's getting fired. Yeah, we spoiled it. Yeah, we spoiled it last year. We spoiled it last episode. Salah's the favorite for coach of the year and the favorite for first coach fired at Bookmaker, which is absurd. That's how win now it is.
The first round draft pick it was a huge need. Offensive line was horrid last year. That was a big problem. But they went out and got multiple free agents, and they drafted, someone who most likely isn't going to be a big part of the offense. Whereas, like, there were so many other spots where, if you're a go for it team, you needed to make probably a different first round draft pick.
Well, they tried to get Odunze.
They did try, but man, I would at that point, because it's one of those picks where it's like, oh, this is going to be useful in the future. Like, if you're Salah in that team, I don't give a fuck about 2025 if you don't make it work this year. Like, you needed to trade back and take like 2 or 3 more receivers. I'm not super sure what the plan was. That said, if you go look at all these roster spots and you start rating these groups, like, holy fuck, this is a good defense. This is, there's some really top end players here. This is a good team. I cannot begin to describe how close my ratings are for Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets. It's wild. Like, obviously the market's pretty much there too. And I do have Miami as third of 3 as does the market, but the 2 today were very, very close. It's going to be a fun division for sure.
Yeah. And of course, like, the headline is, the headline of 2023 of the Jets autopsy is Rodgers' season ends 4 snaps into the season. Mm-hmm. Incomplete. But the byline is what Rodgers did to put his fingerprints on this team coming in.
Yeah.
Prevented them from making the playoffs last year. Period. if they had competent quarterback play, if they had 33rd percentile quarterback play last year. They're not 7-10. They're 10-7.
I know, but at the same time, like
clearly a top 3 defense. Yeah,
you're saying that, but why are we saying that? Like, are we saying that just to dog on the Rodgers stuff?
No, we're saying that because it's pretty well documented.
What's the point of making the playoffs with that roster? Let's say you get 33rd percentile quarterback play.
You don't want that young core to have a little bit of experience in the playoffs before this year going for a title run?
I suppose it helps, but it doesn't help at the most important position, which I guess he has plenty of playoff experience. It helps in that sense. It gets you a worse draft pick. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Look at what the Browns did, Andy. The Browns made specific efforts to try to continue to fight hard, even though it was not necessarily likely to end in an AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
They're locked in forever. They're married forever.
We said that about the Bears too. When the Bears were sucky, it's like
the Vikings. Right, the Vikings lost their quarterback. They make a move. They go get Josh Dobbs and try to give themselves a hope and a prayer to still make the playoffs. The Jets stick with Zach Wilson because Aaron Rodgers says so, and he doesn't want to go out and bring somebody else in to take any of the glory, any of the shine. That's pretty well covered and documented. And then like even beyond that, the weird holding out hope that he was going to come back if they were in the mix for a playoff spot when that was like just completely implausible.
People are clowning on that today, Drew. Like
it's
today,
it's so ridiculous.
There's information that is, coming out from the Jets, from Saleh saying like, hey, with the Achilles thing, he's not going to play in the preseason. Sure.
I got two more strikes. Two more strikes against Aaron Rodgers.
People are quote tweeting that and saying like, oh, but he was questionable to play week 15 last year.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
right. It's just insane. The two more strikes against Rodgers. He elects to bring in Hackett. Hackett can't develop a quarterback, and now you're stuck with Hackett as your offensive coordinator this year, and there's no sign that he is any better than the 29th best offensive coordinator in the NFL. No indication at all. Number two, he brings in all of his buddies in the skill position group game instead of fortifying an offensive line when any schmo, us inclusive, last year previewing the Jets were like, this offensive line looks like a problem. And you got a pretty old quarterback who's had pretty good protection for a long time. This could get interesting. And sure shit, pressure early. Game one, season over. I know you can't kind of clearly connect the dots that the bad offensive line led to that. But you know what surely would have like softened the blow for Zach Wilson, who was clearly in over his head? Protection. Like that was clearly his biggest weakness. And so if you had, a more competent offensive line instead of, getting Randall Cobb, you would have been better off. And if you had in general, like kind of allocated your resources as in the best practices, which the Jets throughout the Joe Douglas regime have made some very, very good draft choices. They hit both offensive and defensive rookie of the year with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson in the same season.
Two offensive rookies a year.
Essentially, because Breece Hall passed the torch to Garrett Wilson. Yeah. And yes, this team has a good young nucleus that they drafted with their draft capital. It has the best defense on paper and by my numbers in the NFL, even though there are maybe some deficiencies you can point to in the pass rush. It's still, this is such a solid unit that is coached well and played well. Like the fact that they finished third in DVOA last year, despite being on the field, it felt like 40 minutes a game is crazy. It's crazy. And ultimately not having a better plan or making a move early in the season to address the quarterback position that's a strike on Rodgers. The way that the offensive line and skill position group was staffed was a strike on Rodgers. Hackett being here is a strike on Rodgers. And so literally now they're in a must-win situation with a lot of doubts still. An old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, and all of these problems are still kind of around, although it was pretty clear that last year's draft and last year's free agency had a lot less Rodgers fingerprints on it. Right. Like pretty clearly the bloom is off the rose there. And they're just like, no, we're doing what we think we need to do correctly. We're not like just going to give away the farm to get Devontae Adams, no matter how bad you want him. He would look good in green. I won't deny that. But like still like the idea of how they're allocating and putting this roster together. It looks like better vision to me. But Hackett is still there. He's a problem, and who knows what you're going to get out of Rodgers coming off an Achilles at this age. So, fascinating team.
That's what I'm saying. Like, let's say he doesn't get hurt, but he's ineffective. He's middle of the pack. Then you just have, I don't know what you have. You have a really good defense. You have some good skill position players, a better offensive line, but none of it matters if the quarterback isn't there. Again, maybe it's flipped and you're like a 10-7 team, 11, maybe even 11-6, just based on like other people aren't scoring on you. And Rodgers is middle of the pack. He's good enough to get you over the hump with these 20-13 wins. But man, like, probably don't win the division at that point, which means you're on the road, and that's just not. We've seen it in the past. We've seen some really good defenses carry some teams. Like, if that's what happens, it's just like I guess you retired, just like Manning. Like, you go out on top, where it's like, man, Peyton Manning wasn't fucking very good this year, but boy, how about that defense? Let's put him onto pasture now. I guess that's the hope for this team, because that's kind of the build we have here. And there's a few spots where nobody has a perfect roster. Like, we're going to dog on rosters. We're going to bitch about offensive coaching. We're going to bitch about GMs and how they drafted, how they went about free agency and through the trade markets. But no one has a perfect roster, and that's something you give up when you have a bunch of high end players, especially when you have to start paying them in those second contracts. Is you might not have all that much depth, but they have some weird spots where the depth could really hurt them because of just the connectivity to where the problems could have, where the cracks could show up on this, again, extremely talented roster.
Yeah.
And sure my highest rated defense so far.
The wildest thing is the Jets, if they scored 21 points in a game last year, they won.
Yeah.
I think honestly that's kind of, this is all just in general a swirling indictment of what Rodgers did in his transition. And, like, I was so ready to turn the page and stop being a Rodgers hater and like literally just kind of excited to see like what kind of renewed like enthusiasm he had for this season and like focus and like determination. And like he heard all of the bullshit and was like, just like the year they drafted Jordan Love and he came in with like a literal like
fire coming out of his nose.
Fire coming out of his face.
I hate to put any stock.
He skips minicamp.
I was gonna say I hate to put any stock into shit that happens in July.
Of course.
The fact that like him and receivers are chirping at each other and there's some discord there already. Yeah. Because I like it when teams are able to put together stacked stars at all three levels of a defense, both key positions on the offense. They went out and paid to get a better offensive line. Like, I kind of want to cheer for the Jets as much as I like some of Rodgers, attitude towards the media and just life in general. But
he's
bad and
what happens, right? Yeah. You know what happens? Like, you squint, you see what this looks like. This looks like Brady and the Bucks. That was fun.
That's another good analogy. Yeah.
Like, that was fun. Like, I would love that. I don't want just the nonstop like
Ed Teach is coming out and back in the Jets this year.
Oh, is he?
I don't think he's around on Twitter much anymore.
Oh, anyway, this had all of the fingerprints of the Bucks blueprint of a Super Bowl, which would be cool if they had kind of continued, if they had built the roster in their vision instead of doing whatever they did for the purpose of placating Rodgers last offseason. Anyway, let's talk about their offseason this year. I do give them credit for acquisitions made on the offensive line. Although the Ravens tend to, what's the right word? They tend to spit out offensive line production and grading and perception that's better than it can be achieved other places historically. And I am a hair worried that kind of going so hard in that direction of getting Baltimore guys. John Simpson too. You went and got two.
I have Simpson as a Like Simpson isn't the better. He's going to be okay, and I think he'll be fine because he's going to be next to, maybe the best left tackle, at least one of the top 3 or 4, if he's healthy. Especially if Tippmann takes a step forward.
Is he top 8? Tyron Smith at this point?
He's still top 5 when he's never playing. He's just never healthy.
I don't know. I see it as a little bit of a risky that you bought high on Baltimore offensive line.
Moses is like 33. No, that's the thing. Like, I am forced to give this offensive line a decent grade.
Yeah, of course. It has to be league average. It has to be better than league average.
You have 2 absolute. You have a stud and almost a stud on the ends, and we've had other offensive line we talked about. Like, hey, the interior might be an issue, but you have good tackles. Yeah. With Smith, as you know, it's a hell of a signing if it works out. He's healthy. Moses grades well, but it's still a new team. Simpson, like I said, it's a meh. You have Tippmann. They're hoping for a step forward at center, and then Elijah Vera Tucker is versatile. Like he can bounce around. They have, obviously they drafted Olu Fashanu, and he'll sit behind Moses. But there's also talk like, hey, if Smith is hurt,
we got a guy. Yeah, we got a swing tackle.
He can play either side. He can probably play either side. He's very talented. And I complain about depth, and then at the same time I complain about drafting depth. So kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but it might be a really good thing to have for Shanu later in the year if things happen. Because like I said, Smith is injury prone and Morgan Moses is no spring chicken. Yeah. So this was like a 29th ranked offensive line for me last year, if not lower at certain points. That's and fair. Now it's like, fuck, you could be somewhere between 10 and 15. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, just also in terms of acquisition, getting Tyrod Taylor, if you have any kind of extended absence for Rodgers, is nice. That's certainly better than Zach Wilson. Obviously you don't want to have to kind of go to war for the whole season with Tyrod Taylor, but he's nice backup. Smith, Simpson, Moses, you allocated resource, Schweitzer, you allocated resource to get guys who can help kind of elevate that unit. I thought that was fine. Getting Mike Williams was interesting to me. When the move happened, I was kind of like, geez, man, if and when he's healthy, like this is going to be a dynamite passing offense because he does have kind of difference-making ability. I don't know what his availability will be. What's your expectation on him coming off the PUP list and being available? Is it early, late, mid? What?
His injury was early in the season. I think he's fine. There's so many guys that are on the PUP list early in training camp. Like, it was a September ACL. I'm penciling him in for pretty sure 100% of the season. Okay. Like, I don't know about effectiveness, and obviously he's been injured more than once. But yeah, he's a very good piece. A new place, sometimes that takes some time to adjust. But yeah, if he plays 100%, he's a big plus compared to what they had, last year.
Yeah, he went down week 3. It was an ACL surgery late October. He'll be 9 months post-op when training camp opens. I guess that's come and gone. So he probably is there week 1. I think that's a realistic guess. Anyway, who knows if he has as much pop to start the season or if this is one of those that takes a year to get right. But whatever the case is, I thought that they handled free agency like a team that really understood the assignment. I thought I would have moved off of Hackett. They kept him, whatever. I didn't think you needed to do anything on the defense.
That's a Rodgers fingerprint thing.
Yeah, right. I didn't think they needed to do anything on the defense. And just in general, the running it back, cool. Like, let's get it. Anyone that you see on the defensive side of the ball that raised your eyebrows that they changing roles, responsibilities?
Defense, like, it's the Reddick for Huff swap. Like, yeah.
Reddick for Huff. Yeah.
Yeah. They brought in Javon Kinlaw. He was a high draft pick a few years back. And again, it's usage wise, not sure, especially it's another team that rotates a lot of people through up front. We'll see. He's penciled in next to Quinnen Williams. I have him, as a plus grade in some things. So the defense should be just as good, if not better.
I totally forgot about Hassan Reddick. What's your read there?
It's a fine move. Like, as far as having to backfill for losing a guy, it's about
he'll eventually show up. He just doesn't want to go to camp, or he's like hoping that they'll blank and give him more money.
Yeah, I don't know about the details there. If he's going to actually like hold out or something, I don't have any opinions on that. But he's an upgrade in run stop, and probably he's just as good, or maybe a step back in pass defense and pass rush. Like, it's a fine move. Like, it's probably about a neutral move.
Okay.
So I have that as a neutral move. They have maybe a little more depth. If they get anything out of Kinlaw, that'll be nice. And then, obviously the secondary is full of studs.
Yeah. Okay. Let's grade these guys. QBOC.
Let's start. Anybody. We don't really explain this. I guess we just assume everybody listens to every single one of these. But we're giving
scale of 1 to 10. 0 to 10. Really, you can go to 0 to 10. We are approximating a percentile here that we are then weighting and summing to get a percentile for an offense, repeating the process for a defense, and then converting that percentile to an overall power rating. And your rating on a scale of 0 to 10 for the QBOC combo in New York is what?
So it was a 6.
6, yes. That's how I thought we were going to have a little disagreement here. We're in agreement.
I wrote down 5 through 7. That was my range.
Yeah.
And I said, like, at his worst, healthy, not missing time, Rodgers, even at this age, doesn't feel like his floor goes below league average.
Yes.
But his ceiling doesn't feel, top 5-ish anymore. It doesn't feel like MVP conversation of 3, 4, 5 years ago. It feels like, and maybe Hackett probably is part of that as well. And just, some of the depth they have at receiver. But yeah, it was going to be between 5 and 7, and I ended up just splitting the difference because this is a very, it's probably the only huge uncertainty we're going to have with the Jets is like what kind of skill level we're going to get from age 41 Aaron Rodgers at this point, not seeing him really in this offense at all yet.
What did you think of over the summer news that the Jets tried to bring in Art Smith to help play calling?
I don't know if that would have been like, I don't know if that would have been a positive.
But no, but like as an indication of them kind of telling on themselves how they feel about Hackett as a play caller.
I don't know if they love what's going on there, but at the same time, as much as we will shit on Rodgers for his age, his injury, coming off the injury, his maybe a little bit of unfamiliarity with actually playing with this team, he is a very good, pre-snap quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. Effectively, you could convince me he's Peyton Manning incarnate, calling the plays himself.
I mean, it's maybe not at the Peyton Manning level, but it's damn it's damn close, right? And that helps your offensive line. Like, that was a big part of this the same offensive line that went out there last year probably could have been better if Aaron Rodgers behind there, because he can help call out defenses. He can help adjust cover, adjust protections. Like, he's such a big part of this offense and this offensive game plan as well, that it maybe makes up a little bit for Hackett, but at the same time, no.
I had look. You sounds like we did almost the same push pull.
I'm willing to move this up
because I'm pushing down because of the scheme disappointments I have with Hackett's scheme. Yeah. And I'm pulling up because I'm like, well, Rodgers at least has it mentally. And then I'm pushing down because I'm not sure Rodgers has it physically. And then I'm pulling it up because I'm like, well, he should have some renewed purpose and he had a year off. Like, he shouldn't be fatigued. So, I think ultimately 6 feels correct to me. I would certainly trade him for a younger.
What is the highest you think that number could go? Is it like
7.5?
Yeah, 7.5.
7.5.
It feels like he could be a top 10 quarterback, but top 5 is probably past.
If he's doing Peyton Manning shit at the line, and if he is feeling no ill effects from the rehab, 7.5 is
and again, that
entirely
offensive
possible.
line is suddenly better as well if he's really putting it together up there, pre-check, pre-snap.
If he's got rust and he's kind of not really keen on what defenses are doing, and he's like doesn't realize these simulated pressure, or wait, why are these defenders? Like there is a very real chance that this current kind of scheme du jour in defense right now is going to be tough for him to figure out, because he missed the entire year where that became like the thing.
I still think he's a student of the game, and I still think he's highly intelligent when it comes to football. Like, I think some of that gets a little bit muddy because it's like, hey, this guy doesn't believe 9/11 happened, and he says weird shit about like lizard people and ayahuasca. He's still very football smart. Like, I feel like he didn't spend the year, just forgetting about football. I think he should be okay.
That's not the point, though.
I know, but actually playing against it.
Like, I'm saying, you're right. What if football has kind of moved a little bit into its next phase, and he's not, it takes him a little while to catch up, and or like maybe like the misdirection stuff, maybe that doesn't really fool him, right? Like maybe like that specific style of defense doesn't phase him, which I'm excited to see when he plays like a McDonald's style a defense this season. I'm excited to see whether he wins the better of that. That's the Dolphins. Exactly.
We're hearing the exact one the Dolphins right now. It's like that's what they're getting down there. They're getting
that's the exact one I'm waiting for.
Misdirection, so many simulated blitzes, simulated pressures. Like,
I'm not going to see that till the end of the year.
Well, he's still going to see them twice a year. He's going to see other teams that is a little more of the the next step of some of these defenses. Like, well, we have to continue to do more and more things to confuse you, because if you know what's coming, we're reactive. That's hard. Like, if you know what our defense is and we have to be reactive, you're going to beat us more times than not. So that is, the next step to being a better defense. It'll be fun.
Okay. The
saying someone is football smart is a nice way of saying they're kind of dumb.
Well, I mean, if you're going to grade the street smarts for Aaron Rodgers, it certainly isn't the same grade as it's football smarts. I'll tell you that much. All right.
He went to Cal. It's a good school, right?
Cal's an amazing school. Probably best public school in
I mean, it's not the ACC's Stanford.
Stanford's not public.
That's true. That is a private.
And actually, I would send my kid to Cal over Stanford. Stanford's wildly overrated.
Just more of a goofy dude. O-line. I also had a 6, and I think I'm going to be higher than you.
O-line, you had 6. Oh, okay, I'm at 5.5. Not a big difference.
And again, I want to point out.
O-line, by the way, without
that's the order I have mine.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I have QB, O-line, and then skill position. Do you want to stop?
No, that's fine. I'll put them in any order. I don't care. So, okay, talk to me through your 6.
Week 1, because this is my week 1 price.
Okay.
And Smith is healthy.
Healthy Smith.
Everybody's healthy.
Everybody's healthy.
This number can move up a little if we see commensurate success from the offensive line people that we think, Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, if we see them playing at the levels we've seen them play in the past, and you have a solid tackle duo and some improvements from Tippmann, Tucker, and maybe Sampson at that point.
Okay.
The interior is definitely the weakness, and this number can go down in a hurry because there's a lot of question marks. But right now it's above average, because if you improve your tackles and you bring in a better quarterback, your offensive line is going to be good.
Okay.
But not great. My
sum of the parts is higher than the grade I gave them, 5.5, but I'm docking them number 1 for continuity, and then I'm docking them number 2 because I'm a little skeptical of the grades that I see come out of the Baltimore O-linemen, just because of how much I feel like Lamar Jackson specifically elevates what looks like, makes the pass pro look better because of what a threat he is. So
that's the other thing you have to evaluate a little when you're doing an offensive line rating is, hey, interior pressure, huh? Well, this guy, he's not as fleet of foot as he once was. And he is more of a pocket passer than, some other quarterbacks. So interior pressure isn't going to be great. If the interior of this line isn't making improvements from what we've seen in past years from the center and honestly both guard positions, it's probably going to take a little bit of a dip, and the whole offense is going to take a big dip because that's going to affect somebody who maybe doesn't have the same sack avoidance he once did.
Okay. Skill group for you?
Skill group is a 6.5.
Ooh, you're high on that too. Okay. I'm at 6.
It's not deep, but it is strong at the top. And not only that, like you have a top 20 receiver, you have a top 10 back, you have a possible another, top. Where would you put Williams?
He's top 40.
He could be top 30. Like you have
could be top 30.
You have the possibility there, and then you have a bunch of guys. You just have a bunch of guys from that point, like Conklin and the rest of the receivers. It's not exciting names. What was the other? There's the backup tight end, Jeremy Ruckert. You have a bunch of different tight ends behind him that I don't think are going to make the roster. And then you have Xavier Gipson battling for the spot with like the rookie Malachi Corley, who it sounds like that's going to be an actual battle, and he might end up being the wide receiver 3. It's still early on in camp, but the depth is going to keep that down because Garrett and Brees are so good, but from there it takes a big leap. And then if Williams isn't good, like if he loses a step, then it's very, very, very top heavy, and that sucks.
Yeah, that's very fair. I'm at 6 largely because of the same sort of issues of depth. I don't love Conklin. I do love Brees Hall, but I'm assuming that he is probably going to be, I don't know. He looks like he's going to have such a huge share of the workload. I don't know what you can expect out of him full season long. I mean, coming on down the stretch last year, he was absolutely amazing. And I don't know, Rodgers has not ever really been a guy that I've seen a lot of interest in getting the running backs involved in the passing game. He's more of a downfield guy. But maybe that changes if his second best receiving option is the running back. I'd love to see more Brees Hall this year for sure.
They drafted a kid out of Wisconsin. We've seen
Braylon Allen.
Yeah, we've seen Wisconsin. Actually, they drafted a pretty good running back out of South Dakota State, which I like him for a lower end project. Maybe this hits running back because he played for a really good, national championship FCS team. But at the same time, I didn't quite understand why they drafted multiple running backs.
Yeah. You know who's not great?
It was later.
You know who I'm not really inclined to see get a ton of snaps? Alan Lazard. No. Seen enough. Actually, somewhat kind of intrigued by some of the clips I saw today of Malachi Corley, who is a rookie wide receiver, intriguing player.
I think he pushes for the 3 spot.
Yeah, I think 6 is pretty much a floor rating that I gave the skill group because Wilson, if he steps into clear top 10. No doubt, top 10 wide receiver, which is very possible. He is that good. And if I could see Brees Hall be RB1. Like you can very clearly convince me that there's a path to victory for Brees Hall, offensive player of the year this year, particularly with the upgrade at the offensive line.
3 people in the chat just said that. Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Look at that.
Brees Lightning, OPOY, Patrick, Godzilla, everybody's on it. Yeah. I dig it. Okay. So you have them at a 61st percentile offense. I'm at a 59th. Basically that means I have them as an offense better than the likes of Tampa, Atlanta, Indy, Jacksonville. I do not have them as good as Houston. I do not have them as good as Philly. I do not have them as good as I have them about equal, a little bit worse than Dallas, not as good as Miami. You are at 61st percentile, which puts them very much in the mix with the Dallas.
Yeah, Philly might have been my highest rated offense that we've spoken about so far.
Me too.
Philly and Houston, and then Atlanta was my 3rd highest behind those.
Interesting.
Because remember, we had a big disconnect on what Atlanta's going to do on the offense.
I still will pay to see it. We'll see. Run stop for you for the Jets. This is tricky.
Solomon Thomas, Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams actually pretty stout against the run. Good. Reddick, like I already said, it's probably a neutral overall.
CJ Mosley. That guy's a million years old, but he never gives up on running, stopping. Good.
Yeah, Mosley's above average at worst. Quincy Williams is great at run stop in the second level.
I think he's gone, isn't he? Oh, no, Quincy Williams. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Quincy Williams, linebacker.
I'm thinking of Quentin Jefferson, who's no longer
there. He's great in run stop hidden. And then they have some backups that they're going to rotate through. If they go to a third linebacker, it's probably Sherwood. He's he's going to be out on anytime they need extra coverage players, but he's a sure tackler. Reed and Adams in the defensive secondary grade out well against the run. You have a bunch of good run stop players, and I gave it a 7.5.
Nice. How did that compare for your
Quinn and Quincy Mosley and Reddick? Like, just there's a bunch of really high end names, and as far as like missed tackle rate and run stop rate and EPA per play.
So you got him equivalent to the Patriots, right?
I should look at my overall rating for defense. Yeah, I have this. This is a better defense than the Patriots on my.
I'm saying run stop. You have them equivalent to the Patriots. I have them a notch better. I'm at 8 for this group for run stop.
I was a little worried. I was worried. I got aggressive with it. That makes me feel a little better.
Okay, what's your pass rush number?
Pass rush for the Jets is also a 7.5.
Ooh, okay. You're expecting basically 1-to-1 then from Huff to Reddick, or maybe even a plus.
I am, and just the scheme. I mean, it's an aggressive scheme, and it's allowed to be because of the secondary that we haven't talked about yet. Some of this is going to depend on how much you get from Kinlaw in the middle, but Quinnen Williams plus everyone else, plus the scheme, plus the coverage, makes it a great unit. Like Reddick, Johnson, again, Mosley, again, Quincy Williams, when they decide to bring those guys from the second level.
Yeah.
And then you have good depth. We haven't seen it yet from Will McDonald, but he was a high pick. Yeah. Solomon Thomas is good depth. You have good rotational depth, too. It should be, again, a very good defense and a very good pass rush. One of the best.
Yeah, as a team, their pressure rate on dropbacks last year was freaking awesome. Fourth highest in the league at 26.5%.
Some of that is attributed to the fact that you have good coverage corners, but again, they still have good coverage corners, so I can't say that that's going to drop off.
Yeah. It is worth knowing that they had fewer kind of chaos plays out of the pass rush in general than the likes of like a Dallas Cowboys team. But maybe my Dallas rating is inflated because of just in general the
19 pick sixes they had.
Yeah, well, yeah, the turnovers and the the fact that they were in a huge lead so often, and so the defense literally just got to pin their ears back. This defense could look better if they're playing with leads. They really could.
Like they were in such just gross slugfests with bad teams or losing to good teams. Quick aside, that's a tough data point to marry with anything you're doing. Turnover EPA, turnover luck, turnover, lost EPA from turnovers. Whenever you're doing it with either a defense or a quarterback, because you have some of these guys like, man, he threw a lot of interceptions. And then you go look at their turnover EPA. It's like, man, am I gonna have to go back and like look at all 15 of these interceptions and just figure out Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Hail Mary at the end of the first half. It's just meaningless interception up by 3 touchdowns. Like, just a lot of it didn't affect win probability. It's really hard to, because even if you take the time to contextualize all the turnovers a team has, I don't know if you've actually learned anything. Because that stuff, it's not like that's going to be
small sample size.
It's not going to be sticky as anything. So, yeah, the chaos plays, like you said, it's hard to marry that.
It's only useful when you have like a huge outlier, where something's not luck adjusted and everybody is in agreement that this unit or this particular aspect of a team is going to be great and they haven't adjusted for luck. Mm-hmm. Small stuff, I think you can basically just assume it all evens out. My coverage rating for this crew is 7.5. which gives me a 75th percentile defense overall. Where are you?
8.
8. Wow, this has got to be your biggest number then so far.
It is. My defensive rating for this team is a 76.7. It's hard when you have probably, I don't even know if it's probably anymore. It's the best corner. It's the best corner duo and probably the best corner trio when you throw in Carter the second. Like DJ Reed's like a top 10 corner now.
Yeah.
So the fact that the safeties are just okay probably doesn't even matter that much. Chuck Clark returning, he's been one of those where he's like above average, but not spectacular throughout his 5-6 years.
Yeah, I don't know that he has much to do though, because his absence was hardly felt last year.
That's the thing. Like him coming back is a plus, but it's not like going to take this up a notch because they're hitting their head on the ceiling already.
Who got his snaps last year? That's gone. Is it White? Was it Whitehead?
I think it was Davis. I think Davis took a lot of his snaps.
Okay.
He'll be possibly playing. It's Tony Adams or Ashton Davis. I think Davis did end up getting a lot of those snaps. If you go back and look at the actual snap rates for 50s.
Well, the other thing that I think is pretty obvious.
I think he did okay. Yeah, Tony Adams played obviously the most because Chuck Clark was hurt. And Ashton Davis played 200 snaps last year. Somebody's gone.
Whitehead.
I think that's who you brought him up.
Okay, so one of the reasons that it's easy to be bullish on this defense and have high numbers and generally just stick to them, beyond the reasons we've already mentioned, is that it does seem like there is signal that Saleh and his defensive coaching staff can really develop these guys. Like the fact that you've gotten hit after hit after hit in the draft, it's not luck. It's not evaluation. A huge aspect of that is you're getting talented guys and then you're turning them into bona fide players.
No, there's this level right below Bill Belichick where you throw these guys especially contemporary guys like Zimmer, Quinn, and definitely Saleh. Some of these guys where it's like, hey, you might not be the best head coach, but fuck, you guys are really good DCs who are able to put together a good scheme, draft guys, develop guys, bring guys together. And probably some of these guys that come out of Baltimore now might see it with McDonald too. Like there's a defensive renaissance, Drew.
Yeah.
In an offensive league. So yeah, I really do respect Saleh as like you said, and maybe it's not even him as far as the talent evaluation. It could be some guy we've never heard of who's like Jonah Hill in Moneyball, just like the computer guy and head of scouting or something, who's really been able to put some good names in front of some of the big brass there.
Yeah. Because
a lot of the guys that have really hit haven't been free agents.
Right.
It's been in-house stuff. So
yes,
congrats, guys.
100%. Special teams.
Special tempo is a 6 for the Jets. They're above average.
Made a lot of goals last year because they attempted a lot because they had no red zone offense.
And Zerlin is still good from long distance. He's good. Morstead's okay. Xavier Gibson that I talked about, who has maybe a tenuous hold on wide receiver 3. He's a good returner. They signed Tariq Cohen, who, remember, I feel like I was thinking about him today and I didn't have a chance to look it up. Do you remember he had a comeback attempt and then he just snapped his hamstring or something in his practice? Like he was doing Instagram reels and he went down.
I do.
But they have said this team is excited for the new rules. That was a part of why they got Cohen. I think there's going to be good teams that are putting 2 legitimate returners back there, making sure that they have all their bases covered to take advantage of these new rules. So I'm excited.
Brant Blair.
I'm excited.
Former linebacker for the Jaguars. I got a photo of him in the old school Jaguars uniform here. He's the special teams coordinator. Okay, 6 works. Intangibles. Where you at?
That was one more thing. They did have one of the best kick coverage teams last year.
Oh, did they? Oh.
But I started to look at those numbers to put those in my special teams ratings, just from hey, let's at least look at 1 through 32 and see who was really bad or really good. Then I thought more about that. I'm like, how well does that translate with the new rules? I suppose good.
They were fifth in DVOA last year in special teams.
Good teams, and good special team coaches. You would think, it translates. Like, hey, you're lane integrity and keeping contained and making sure you're doing the right thing when you're the fourth linebacker off the bench and you're still doing a really good job on special teams. Like, feels like special teams coach is a little bit of a hidden edge when you have a really good one.
Okay. Intangibles.
This was tough because I think we shat all over Saleh as a head coach.
And I mean, I think from an adjustment standpoint, I'm not expecting Hackett to come up with anything smart at halftime. Defense adjustments, sure, but that's not going to win you football games if you're down.
4.
You're at 4. I'm at 3. I think there are definitely aspects of this, in the game call and the decision making that are a little out of date there. Not a strong opinion, other than just not expecting much in terms of adjustments from Mr. Saleh.
That was part of the reason. You kind of already said it right there. I do think if there are issues that need adjusting, at least on the defensive side of the ball, he's fine there.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen them do good adjustments at halftime in game plans. Tough though when
Gibson had that kick return. Was that an overtime game?
Yes. Yes.
Somebody check on that. That might have been Xavier Gibson.
Even though he scored a touchdown in overtime. I think it was Gibson. I'm pretty sure it was.
That down.
That was the highlight of the Jets' entire season for sure.
I
was going to ask you.
We have to remember this when we talk about the Bills, Drew. That they lost to the Jets in you almost forget that they lost to the Jets in the Rodgers went down game.
Yeah, it was Gibson, and it was a 65-yard punt return. He had another punt return, I feel like, later in the season too. He was a decent little special teams monster. No, he only had the one, just the one punt return. His longest kickoff return was 34 yards. Yeah,
I'm upgrading it to a 6.5.
Oh, okay.
It did not change their overall rating much.
Well, you just got that in under the wire. I guess the point I was gonna, or I don't even remember what point, if I was even making a point. The final summation here, I have the Jets as a better team than the Dolphins by a non-trivial amount, 59th to 61st percentile. You have the Jets better than the Dolphins by even smaller amount, 64th to 63rd. And you have basically the Jets as a 4 points plus 4.
I gotta scroll over. I mean,
plus 4.5, plus 4, plus 4.25. Yeah,
4. I rounded to 4.
I'm at plus 3.5 for the Jets. So, so far we're in the right order here in the AFC least, in terms of going up, and to the right in terms of good offense, good defense. But yeah, best defense we've talked about so far, 75th percentile. Yours is also the best defense you've rated to this point, 677th percentile. So
you want to get
I think this is fair. I don't know.
Problem?
What's that good?
You want to get to the big problem?
Schedule. And there's the rub. They're favored in a lot of games.
They are. They're a good team. And if you want to be fair, all of the good teams in this division have a toughish schedule. The Bills don't have an easy schedule either. And I know this is not something you should lean on because it very much, we do this every year and I think Clev TA does a good job of this in his previews where he's like, they were supposed to have the 5th hardest schedule. It turned out to be the 17th hardest schedule. It changes so much. So many things can happen. But from our standpoint here in the late, the waning moments of July, it's not great. There's some tough ass spots, and there's some tough ass spots late as they head into, trying to win this division, trying to sew up a better wild card spot. It's not great after the bye there.
Outside of New England, Pittsburgh, and Minnesota, and Denver, and Tennessee, I guess. That's a lot.
Arizona.
Those are teams without blue blood quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Everybody else has a blue blood quarterback. I count 1, 2. So okay, you're playing a bunch of teams in the first half of the season, first 8 weeks of the season. A lot of teams that have quarterbacks you should be able to gain an advantage on with your defense. A lot. Week 2, Levis. Week 3, Brissett/May. Week 4, Nix /Stidham. Week 5, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold Sam Darnold's going to see ghosts against his old team. If he doesn't have mono, because it is going to be getting it's kissing season around early October. Pittsburgh week 7, New England week 8. Really, that first 8 weeks, you should be able to get off to a good start, even if your offense is still finding its feet, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, and like I said, even at Minnesota, that's probably a plus matchup because you're playing a bad quarterback or at least a below average quarterback. And, what is their strength? That was something that, we saw more of with Sauce, following the receiver one. That's going to be, especially with DJ Reed being so good, like Sauce is on him. Sauce is probably taking care of the one thing that can sting you from Minnesota. So like those are games you have to win. I don't think you can't fuck up the New England games or the Denver game or the Minnesota game, the Tennessee game. Have to get all those because
but that's 5 in your first 8 weeks.
Yeah, because it's tough sledding late. It's tough sledding against the rest of the division. You have a nasty one to start with, and you have a couple of these coin flips against teams that have a lot of upside, like honestly, Pittsburgh still is a well-coached team with a very good defense and a bunch of players that it might all come together if they can sort out anything at the quarterback. Jacksonville's kind of, honestly, that's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. This isn't actually like that. This isn't that tough of a schedule, I don't think.
Well, a big part of it is just the division they play in. Like they have four divisional games that are just nasty, plus San Francisco and God, what's the other one I'm looking at? That Rams.
Houston.
Houston and the Rams game. Both of those are in.
Yeah, I mean, we know the AFC South is good. You got to play the AFC South, so all 4 of those are going to be dogfights. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like this isn't an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like relative to Miami, where the freaking anvil just drops in December, like this is probably a lot better.
Sequencing for Miami is fucked.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of funny things about this schedule. You ready?
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers opens the season on Monday Night Football for the second straight year. And he gets to do it in the Bay. He gets a little family reunion. The Rodgers can come down to the Field of Jeans and see Aaron. Who knows how many more chances they're going to get to see him in San Francisco. So this is huge. The other funny thing about the schedule, if you don't like the Jets, when you love football, I have terrible news for you. Terrible news for you.
Yeah.
They are in a standalone game.
A bunch.
8 of the first 11 weeks. No, sorry, 7. 7 of the first 11 weeks, they're in a standalone game. Monday Night Football week 1, Thursday Night Football week 3. They go to London week 5 to play the Vikings. Pretty cool that you're at Vikings game. You have the travel advantage. Really, really gnarly turnaround though. Playing Buffalo at home the following week, off of the London game. Ooh, yuck.
Kind of penciling that one in for
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Like scheduled loss.
Scheduled loss. And then you get 2 more road games. So travel is non-trivial at Pittsburgh, at New England. Although I think your defense should win you those 2 games, even if everybody's tie. Houston is going to be a great one. That's a Thursday Night Football game. Halloween. We got to think about our Halloween costumes, by the way. Aaron Rodgers versus CJ Stroud. That's going to be a great game.
Do one of the quarterbacks. Well, paper, X, scissors for it. True. We can't get in trouble.
We'll dress as Rodgers and trip as we'll do different versions of Aaron Rodgers.
I like terrible dreads.
Yeah. In the end, honestly, it doesn't look that bad. Like, huge rest disadvantage spots. Going to be tough playing Miami and Rams end of the season with the rest disadvantage, but those are still winnable games.
Yeah, it's one of those. Again, I'm talking about. It's so hard to actually evaluate like how tough will this actually be, because you have so many of those teams in the coin flip spots. Like the Rams could fall off a cliff this year. Jacksonville could be a big range of possibilities. Same thing with Seattle. Honestly, Minnesota. I know it's an international game and things get weird. Minnesota has a wide range. Pittsburgh, Arizona, honestly, too. I don't know quite what to make of how much their upside actually exists. So it could be
kind of
this
funny.
Is one of those. This could be a top 10 toughest. This could be a bottom 10 if all those teams just kind of underperform and all those coin flips turn into, hey, we're 3.5 point favorites now.
Yeah, kind of funny that they get to go to Florida back-to-back weeks in December and avoid the cold. But yeah, Patrick points it out. And I was going to say it too. I like hosting the Rams in the cold in 16. I like hosting Miami in the cold in 18. Like that's solid. We talked about this with Miami with all those cold games. Miami. The flip side is true where the Jets get the benefit of that. So honestly, this is the type of schedule where, and actually that's also weird. Out of the bye, the Jets are at 1 p.m. on Sunday every single week. Why did they take their foot off the gas in terms of making us take our medicine with the Jets?
They know they'll flex them.
They're going to flex them.
Like if the Jets are really good, they'll just get flexed.
Flex them.
Especially now that they're allowed to flex Thursday night.
Flex. I'd love to see Jets Rams flex. That's a good one. I'd love to see. Yeah. Okay. So the first team that's really running the McDonald's stuff, we're not really going to see it until late. So we're not really going to know. All right.
Thoughts on betting odds? Anything? The prices are, like I said, it's close between the top three teams, and I don't think I love any of the value. Our Miami bet turned out to, what was it, like wild card round exit?
Oh, I ended up betting them last winless team 10-1.
Oh, sure, with the easy soft schedule to start. Yeah, I don't have anything I really love with the Jets. I think if you're bullish on Rodgers and the schedule doesn't scare you as much, I think they're an alt-over team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
Especially with Miami late. If Miami's reeling and they end up sweeping Miami and New England, there's like 8 other wins there. Suddenly it's like, hey, they got 12 wins. Just all it takes is a coin flip here or there, and suddenly it's AFC 2 seed.
Aaron Rodgers has a tendency not to throw interceptions, which makes his statistical profile look amazing, which is why he is the multiple-time MVP winner, in my opinion, besides getting the 1 seed multiple years. If the Jets get a 1 seed, is Aaron Rodgers in the MVP mix at 15-1?
Not at that price.
Not at that price. Yeah. Defensive player of the year. Anyone stand out enough on this unit, or is this just team strength?
It's such a sum of the parts, even though Williams mostly sauce. There's so many good points. Like it's such a sum of the parts. It would have to take like some good counting stats.
And there's too many other good defensive players.
And that's the thing. There's so many good edge rushers. Like who's your best edge rusher in this team? Pure edge rusher, because your best defensive
probably
lineman,
Reddick.
Yeah, your best defensive lineman is an interior guy. And I know, we've seen it with Aaron Donald. And there's a bit of a flip in the league to really starting to respect interior guys again. But I don't know if Williams has the juice. And it's hard to bet on Sauce because it's one of those things where I think he only got targeted 55 times last year. It's one of those, like, if a corner is that good, they just don't throw at him. And who respects the shit out of him is defense or offensive coordinators on the other team. But the media isn't like, man, this guy's he's not getting his counting stats because no one's throwing at him.
What's your degree of concern that Sauce Gardner is too interested in golf and doesn't have passion for football anymore?
I'm kind of mad how good he is at golf. I went golfing last week. I didn't hit it that well.
OPOY, Brees Hall is down to 15-1. I don't think that's bettable at that price. Hopefully you got some 30 a million years ago. If not, I would pass. That market is crowded as hell too. I don't think Garrett Wilson has a realistic shot, but you never know. D-Roy, O'Roy, no. Coach of the year. We mentioned Saul is the favorite at 7-1. I think that's pretty silly. If you like If you like Saul at 7-1, you know what I would recommend you do? Just go bet Jets 1 seed. Like they can get the 1 seed and still not give Saul that award. So I do not understand why he's the favorite at all. That makes no sense to me. Because 1 seed price is longer than that, right?
Oh, best record, 1 seed.
Best record, 1 seed.
Yeah. If you go to like FanDuel has them like 18-1. I don't know. Somebody, I feel like it because you quoted it, Chris, and I feel like it's July and they just have the auto mover on. Somebody put like $250 on Salah twice, and it just auto moved, hasn't reset or something. Because that's not the correct price. I bet if we check back next week, it won't be. It'll be like 12.
They're gonna
14.
Clean those up. Okay.
Yeah, let's just like, all right, reset these numbers. Shuffle when everything flashes at once. Final thoughts on the Jets? I don't.
Well, I have another one. Your favorite for comeback player of the year is Aaron Rodgers.
That's a very crowded market that I'm
Plus
not betting this year. I'm not betting.
Yeah.
Will not get a dime with my money. Although they did put out that press release saying like we tried to clear up what it actually means, basically saying like you can't come back from just sucking ass. It has to be an injury or something that derailed your career a little.
Yeah.
He probably should be the favorite. It's him, Cousins, Herbert.
Yeah.
There's one of those quarterbacks, whoever plays the best out of those three probably wins it, right?
Yeah. Most wins, by the way, is 16-1 for the Jets. They are about the 8th choice in that market. Ironically enough, exact same price as the Packers. So Aaron Rodgers against his old team, squarely priced.
I feel like I'm missing one. Can you go back to comeback? Was there another quarterback high up there that I missed?
Probably. Who did you say besides? Did you say
Rodgers, Cousins, and Herbert?
Kissing Cousins, Herbert, Joe Burrow, Anthony Richardson, although that seems dumb. Deshaun Watson, although that seems really dumb.
Daniel Jones for Watson.
Daniel Jones. And then there's your old rubric, which is Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold, but that's not happening.
I didn't hate giving it to Flacco, honestly, either.
Oh, you're out of your mind. That was the worst. That was the worst decision that was made in all of the awards in the last 10 years.
It made for good content.
It did, but it was extremely stupid.
It was he said he didn't deserve it.
So I know we've gone way long here on the Jets, and apologies to anyone who thought we were going to get this done in an hour. There's just so much to talk about. If the Jets hit their ceiling and they're a top 2 seed, they win the East, they get some home games, is this a team that you are taking a stand against in the postseason for any particular reason? Or do you think that they, at that point, would have enough chops to consider them on par with the likes of the Pat Mahomeses and the Joe Burrows and the
love to bet this Jets team as a home dog against like Kansas City? If they price Kansas City as like a 1-point road favorite or something.
That
because
would be fucking awesome.
Because of the the amount of respect you have to have. But again, you probably have 2 of the best in the business going head to head in Salah and Andy Reid, and not Salah as a head coach, Salah as a defensive game planner for putting it together. They
almost beat him with Zach Wilson last year.
Yeah,
it was a regular season, and who cares?
They won't have played, so that would be fun if you could get a higher seed than Kansas City, and the market would be like, oh my god. Let's say it opens with Kansas City as a small dog, and the amount of action you get in the playoffs, like you may get enough public money it doesn't take much to flip over zero. We're getting like
I'll be honest
Jets
with you, man.
At plus 110.
After what happened last year with the Mahomes success on the road, round 2, round 3, round 2 championship Super Bowl, they're not opening him as a dog. Even against the Jets as the home team with the 13-win season. I still think Mahomes' respect is going to be absurd.
I'd have to look at my numbers. I think I'd make it like and again, at this point, if the Jets are that good, my number on the Jets is obviously higher than it is right now. But if it's, I think I'd probably add it like a pick 'em.
Oh my God. 2-3 Jets Chiefs. So speak this into existence, man. I agree. This feels like a very, very good bet.
Can you imagine the drunk assholes at the Meadowlands. Like that would be an elite game to go to if you're in the tri-state area.
That's a Saturday nighter, right?
Oh, it has to be a night game. There's no way
Saturday
around
night.
that.
Divisional round Saturday night, right?
I would like that game. That's what I'm closing on that. That's all I want for whatever holidays.
Divisional round, I want the wild card Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals, and I want that on Sunday afternoon, and then I want Chiefs at the Jets on Saturday night.
And then imagine it's like Packers-Niners rematch, and like Lions. God, what Lions? Oh God,
yeah.
Lions-Rams. That'd be a fun one.
Yeah.
Lions-Eagles.
Yeah,
we could have a really good divisional series.
The good teams look good this year, I have to say. I'm excited. I think football is going to be better.
Yeah.
Plus, they finally banned the hip drop. Thank God.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Good job. If you guys are watching, I explained this last time. We're going to a different channel. Not a different channel, same channel. We're recording these separately, so they're on their own YouTube videos. So it'll pop up in 30 seconds. We'll be on a different one. That says
yeah, we heard your complaints. We've broken them up on YouTube videos, so you can. You don't have to jump to the middle. You're welcome.
Let's keep them all healthy this year. See you guys.